Hello, Millena, and welcome. Welcome to the Art Salon. Clearly, you're not in your studio right now. It looks far too tidy.
Yes, it does. And I'm not in my studio, no.
No.
However, I have an example of my work behind me.
And it
Right.
looks very beautiful.
Yes.
So,
Getting quite a lot of...
Sorry, you go ahead.
You do.
We've been working together for a few years now, and I remember very distinctly that debut collection of yours that I showed in one of the London art fairs was met with a huge, overwhelming response. For somebody that's shown for the first time, it was very unusual, and it's all my 25 years, it's very rare to have an artist go out for the first time, being shown for the first time, and have a sellout show. So well done on that. But
Thank you.
To get to that point takes an awful lot of work, an awful lot of effort. And there's, I think J.K. Rowling once famously said, it's as though I woke up one day and wrote Harry Potter for the first time, but it was 15 years in the making, So, and I think a lot of people that look at art, they're split into two camps. Either they appreciate how much blood, sweat and tears has gone on behind the scenes and what's led, and everyone's journey is different to when they get to that point. And others are, well, it doesn't look too hard. I think I could probably do that. I don't think I've ever heard someone say that about your work, I have to say.
No.
It's quite clear the craftsmanship involved in it. But let's start at the beginning. I mean, why do you create? Because not everybody does create, and some people are just driven to, and they create in all sorts of ways the whole way through their life. Has that been the case for you? What brings you to that board and makes you want to create something beautiful?
Well, it's been a lifelong journey. Really, ever since I can remember, I've always been drawing or making art. I had a huge pile of my works that I would critique on a Sunday and throw away. Mind you, I was 7 or 8 at that time.
Oh my goodness.
Quite a few. I was always very critical about what I do, never quite satisfying myself. I took drawing lessons, however, I was good, but never as good as Leonardo da Vinci. This was something, I got slightly discouraged. I think it was by high standards as well. And then it's because of the circumstances as well. And also, this will sound like bragging, but because I was too clever. So I went on to study law. And when I was walking out of the Warsaw University gate, I had the gate of art school on the other side of the street, and all those 5 years I always felt that I should have been walking out of there.
You were on the wrong side of the street.
I was on the wrong side. However, it just transpired that I was never meant to be a lawyer. So basically, mainly I worked as an interior designer for years, and for me art was always an essential element. Anytime I went to see new clients, when they had any sort of art already, I was happy, because working with a client where there was no art whatsoever meant that it's going to be difficult, because it's that we're not on the same level.
So that was your bar. That was your bar, basically, your standard.
Yes, basically. Yes, and therefore, sometimes I would just go and produce something large and stunning that would make the interior. However, never treated it seriously until later on in life. I had time and opportunity to actually start thinking about what I really want to do. And what I really want to do, what I really love doing, is creating lovely pieces whenever I feel like it. Or if there's an art fair coming, then I prepare the collection.
that mean art dealer of yours that makes you deliver for shows around the world.
I'm used to working to order, and I'm used to working to instructions, so it mixes. It mixes, but it makes me create better things.
to work to deadline.
Yeah.
But you make it sound as though you just sort of, it's very easy, it's very effortless, and and I know, Millena, so so don't try and pull the wool here. I know that you're a grafter by nature anyway, which is, I mean, you don't become a lawyer by not being a grafter to start with, but you've always been a grafter. You're a curious person, and you like to push things to their limits and to discover, and I've always thought of you as sort of part designer, part engineer, and just an all-round curious person, whether that's with people, with aesthetics, or whatever the subject is. So what is your process? I mean, do you start early in the morning? Is it the physicality of delivering the piece that, because your works are very physically involved, they're not done at a distance, are they? So talk us through a bit of how you approach it intellectually and physically.
Well, this kind of work, being an artist, allows me to be moody, which means that I do it when the mood is right. Sometimes I sit around the whole day, trying not to do anything that will make me tired, so that when I feel the moment, I would just walk in and do it. And sometimes I like the first layers because they are very spectacular and easy. The gold shines, everything seems to be happening. But then in order to achieve what I want, this is the hard work. And sometimes I have to let it go for a few days, hide it behind other boards, because I know something will be happening there. However, I don't know yet how to do it. And apart from doing anything else, sometimes I feel like an alchemist, mixing my things and just hoping that it's going to work. I like being surprised as well when I try something new and the effect is better than I thought. Or it changes the whole direction of a piece, because suddenly I think, oh no, it's not this one, it's going to be something else, because it works, whatever I put on top.
But it's always been important to you, it seems, to turn those raw materials into something extra special. And the materials that you've chosen to work with have to be worked like a craftsman, really. You know, when you paint with oil or acrylics, there's a skill in understanding how they work. But you're not choosing to paint, you're not choosing the more straightforward route or well-trodden path, should I say. You are choosing materials that take both science and art and combine them, really.
Oh yes, there's lots of right now I've gained, obviously I'm still gaining more and more knowledge as to what I can do with these things. However, you have to, you know that I usually start with just silver and gold, and then I achieve all those colors by mixing them and adding them. And also, you know, I'm not able to reproduce any of my works because there's so many layers going in there, and such an intense mix of materials that I myself sometimes wonder how I have achieved something. How have I done it? I'm trying to remember. Writing anything down again does not work, because I tried that as well. Because again, there are sometimes 20 or 30 layers on the surface. So to achieve the same color hue, or it's impossible. Basically impossible. Maybe it is possible, but I'm not there yet.
It is a pure form of expression, though, isn't it? And that's maybe why you can't recreate it, because each time you come back to that board, you're expressing. And if you have left it for a day or two and you've been a bit moody in between, then you're coming at it, you know, differently each time. And I think people are picking up on that. I think when I said that I was going to interview you, I asked, you know, if there was any questions, and one of them that repeatedly came up was, it looks so elegant and so sublime, it looks effortless. Does she ever make mistakes? And I said, well, I suspect she makes quite a lot of mistakes. I mean, artists are very, certainly when they're starting out, they get very concerned if it's not perfect, or they're very frustrated by them not being able to deliver. You know, they're very harsh critics of themselves, artists, and you've said that already.
Oh, yes.
How do you work through, one, do you make a mess quite often? And two, how do you work through that? I mean, what is it that just keeps pushing you forward?
I think ambition, and also when I start something, I finish. Mm-hmm. So I think the best pieces were those that annoyed me for a long time, and where I was confused as to how to deal with them. And also, Jeni, you know, you're very well aware of it, of the fact that my pieces look so different in different light or from different angles.
Yes.
There's all this walking around, so it's not something that looks good when you face it. I have to examine it, move it from place to place, change the light, and sometimes examine it from the sides, because the mistakes or something that I'm not too happy with will only be seen from the sides. So when I deliver a piece, it's been looked at.
Every which way.
Every which way, moved from room to room. Sometimes I even take them to my bedroom. I have like sort of ready-made hanging devices where I can just sort of wake up in the morning and look at them. Or I designate them to my storage space and they just sit there until I'm ready to get them out. And finishing with these things. It's very difficult to finish, because, you know, I can always do more or less.
You wouldn't believe how common that is amongst artists. You know, you need somebody else to come in and nick it out of your studio before. So yes, it's never quite finished, is it?
Okay, in my case, usually I put varnish on top. However, I can still work on top of the varnish. So very often a piece would appear to be finished, but then I would spot something. I examine them so closely, especially those kind of smooth ones. These are like those behind you. They're very difficult to make.
These ones here, yeah. I mean, this is a diptych, so this is quite...
Yeah.
This must have its challenges in itself. The one behind me here is a standalone piece, but this is a diptych that actually could be separated and seen on the same wall, but separated, but does work very well together. And I look at that and think, because every time I walk past it, it changes. And any diptych I've had at an art fair, which it changes, and in the daytime it looks different to the nighttime, and yet it still works seamlessly. Do you find it more difficult to do, because you've done triptychs as well, you've done the diptychs and triptychs, do you find, well, you've done actually even larger pieces, but is that more of a challenge, doing more than one as a single art?
Not really. It kind of works because I'm an extremely practical person. So when I start with something, I have two boards on the table, because mind you, you have to remember that I'm doing everything flat. So what I see lying on top of the table, being lit in a certain way, it's one view of what I'm creating. So I have to constantly move them up to see what they look like, basically. And it's the light again, because in my studio I have a window in the roof, so very often I have to climb on the ladder, cover it, because the gold is blazing into my eyes. Or wait till the afternoon when the sun passes and I have this light. So it's all about light, basically, and making humongous amount of mess.
And mistakes, presumably.
No, it's the practical thing. Because basically I'm very rough and ready with the leaf. It's not applied paste, but you know, in a calm fashion. I scratch it, I rip it, I put things on top. So basically, I'm very often covered in gold leaf, and so are my surroundings. And if the wind blows through the window, it's all over the garden. So
it sounds very James Bond. It's
all gold or silver. I'm envious of people who paint, because I think they're able to contain the work.
They're not. I go to studios all the time and I come back covered in orange and green and red.
Well, yes. Well, otherwise, if you mustn't care of what goes on the walls, or on the floor, or anywhere else. So yes.
You just care about this final piece, basically. So it's almost sculptural in that sense. You're almost having to approach it in the 3D, even though it is a flat piece. It is, but you are having to approach it intellectually in the 3D, really, because you're having to watch this light change. But I think this is one of the big compliments that you get, is that it's sort of, it lives, your work lives in a room, because it does change from morning to night. You know, it's for me, it's one of what I would describe as my whiskey painting, because I can disappear into your work, and sometimes it can be a landscape and sometimes it can be a seascape. It sort of takes on the viewer's feelings and emotions, if you see what I mean. It's able, so it definitely, there's a very strong dialogue that happens between the viewer and your work. Is that something you're considering, or is that really not? That's something that's just happens because you've already had that dialogue with your piece?
Well, these are usually my memories, because, okay, again, I cannot, let's say, do my work by the seaside. I have to be in the studio, so it's whatever I take from being somewhere. Seaside, my lake, it's just memories and colors mainly, or just the feel for something. And I don't know, I've always loved it. I was born in a lake district, so lakes were always there. And I especially like them out of season when the tourists have gone and you have your lakes to yourself, you know, as a native. And this is what I love the most. And oceans and seas, always. I just love it. And yes, that's that. Also, I never felt I needed to attack anybody with my art.
Yeah, no, I think your work is highly expressionistic. I mean, it is abstracted versions, but it's more expressionistic, which is why I think people do have their own dialogue with it. They're able to see it through your eyes, which I think is important, but it's also very personal to the individual person. So you touched there on the lakes. When you get to the point where, you know, if you're creating a collection, I mean, earlier this year, you had to create a collection for New York and for London, and that's a big ask. I mean, obviously, I ship it out at the beginning of the year, so it's about a year in progress doing those sorts of collections. It must get to the point where you need to just step back and get some fresh inspiration, a breath of fresh air. Where do you find, where is your happy place? I mean, do you like to sit in the throng of the city? Do you like to just get away and see the ocean? Is it people? What is it that counterbalances the graft, if you see what I mean?
Driving and cloud spotting.
Driving and now I didn't know that was coming.
Especially, you know, around my studio when I go north, they're very flat areas, and the sunsets and sunrises are my thing. I'm an early bird, and the skies are spectacular, and this is enough, you know. And also I do drive quite a lot, so this is it, and see anytime.
So it's that open perspective, you know, the opposite to the city, I suppose. It's that openness and that freedom that you feel when you get from that, and it's very much more at one with nature. So it's interesting that you use natural materials and create natural scapes, as it were, you know, expressionistic ones. But I suppose it shouldn't have made it was the driving that threw me there.
Because you know, when you drive, you know, the sky changes more.
Indeed.
Especially if it's fast.
We won't dwell on that here. So have there been artists, you know, dead or alive, that have had an effect, a profound effect? Have they, you know, have they influenced you, even if it's just sort of on a subconscious level? Were you aware of seeing your first work of art? I mean, I can remember my first work of art and being moved, you know, that solar plexus grabs you. Have you got artists that for you speak to you quite closely, quite directly?
Well, always Leonardo da Vinci's drawings, not paintings, drawings. But Mark Roscoe
Mm, mm.
and the Seagram murals.
Mm-hmm.
I just absolutely. This is one of the most beautiful moments. This was Tate Modern. They
Mm-hmm.
actually had all 9 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and the room was moving.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it. It's about feeling. It's how it makes you feel. It's not what you see. It's you see something. However, it stops being the visual
Yeah.
only impact on how you perceive it, but it's the feeling. And yeah, well, I do like Constable, but abstract.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No, I can
But
see
I
that.
just
He
went
likes
for
his
it.
clouds.
Yes, and
um,
also I do admire lots of art. However, I can't say that it kind of influences me simply because I use those weird materials that
mm,
work differently to paint and any other medium that other artists are using.
yes.
So
Yes. Well, knowing your background, it makes complete sense that you use those materials, and that you mentioned Rothko. I mean, Rothko was one of my. I'd seen it for many years on slides and art history lectures, and thought I don't really get that. And then you stand in front of one, and your sort of whole being is taken
yeah,
in. I felt like I've been sucked into the painting, and I think that is definitely a commonality with your work. People, and that is why for me, you know, it's what I would, you're very crassly describe as a whiskey painting, because I'm taken into your world, I'm taken into it, and I think you're very successful. And I think it's like good design. You don't really, you can't better good design. There's nothing you can take away or nothing you can add. And so I think that's the same for your artwork. You get the balance just right. But when I unwrap them, when they arrive with me here in Bath, and I unwrap them, and I marvel at how you can do it every time. There never seems to be a sort of, oh, that's okay painting. That it's, you know, and I actually slightly struggle describing them as paintings because they are more sculptural to me.
yes, yeah, they're gildings, my daughter said.
It's been so gilding, you're thinking of furniture, which I know that you've got experience in, but it's not that, is it? Because you're not expressing in the same way with gilding. So it's I suppose they're gilded paintings, but they are very sort of sculptural. So
Yeah.
when you do get out the studio and you're not hot-footing it down the road cloud spotting, how do you like to pass your time? What's Millena's world? What is it that I mean, you're very much a family girl. You're very close to your girls, and you like to spend time with them. But what is it beyond family that you enjoy doing? Are you a
Well,
trampolinist?
I still go back to my work once in a while, and I design really good places for people to live in.
Yeah.
Because this is my, I think this is my main skill.
Yeah.
You know, just seeing what needs to be done, and doing it and making people very happy
You're
once
very
they find.
driven by the aesthetic, aren't you? You're
Oh
very,
yeah,
yeah.
and I think it's the attention to detail as well
Mm.
that kind of that makes me examine my paintings for 100th time, because everything needs to be perfect, otherwise I'm not satisfied.
No, that's I can get that. You are a perfectionist, but you push yourself really hard, and you're not afraid to make mistakes. I mean, one of the other questions that was asked quite repeatedly is what lies ahead for Millena? I mean, is it this continual push to see what you could get out of these raw materials? Is it this constant strive to balance the science and the art, as it were?
Yes, I'm still. I have just got a shipment of 10,000 leaf straight from Florence.
Oh my goodness.
Can't wait to see what I'm going to produce when I have an abundance of material.
Yeah, yeah.
Destroy it and not care, but I'll have enough. Because sometimes I switch from gold to silver simply because I run out of gold. And then, okay, it's time for silver. Let's see how much do I have of this.
What we
And
can
then,
do.
yes, All the day is quieter, or the lake is just grey, or it's yes. There are lots of things just hanging around to be finished, and then I pick the best ones when I send them over to you.
Thank you. And I send them around the world.
Oh, fantastic. No, it makes me very happy. And I'm always, I mean, every sale for me is, I'm just happy that people like my things. And if that can give them pleasure, I'm very happy. It's a good feeling.
So
Also being
is that, I mean, this final question I think I want to ask you today is, what defines success for you? And is that actually the success? Is it that people engage with your work, or is it that you want to be incredibly well known, or is it that you want to say something in particular, or is it much more a human to human success meter?
I just like selling things to people. I just like people buying my works, and I do hope that I'm going to get better and better. I think I'm getting more and more ambitious. As I said, I'll never be good enough for myself. So I'm happy that I'm good enough. Although some of my pieces, especially when I haven't seen them in a while, they kind of not astound me, but sometimes they surprise me when I think, oh, this is not bad at all, actually.
Good, good, because the rest of the world seems to think that.
Yes. Well, Jeni, I want to do large pieces, and I do, ideally, what I would love to do, I have all those designs for restaurants and lobbies in hotels in my head, with blown up or huge sort of dreamy walls, like the one behind you, but huge.
Yeah.
And dark dining rooms with good lighting, and my pieces just glowing off the walls. I think I want the Mark Rothko feeling of the walls moving and living.
Yes.
And the larger the better. Large things.
So only people with large walls apply.
Yes.
You do. I mean, one of the things you have done in the last year actually is to work at different sizes, but I mean, clearly you prefer to work on the larger size. But I mean, I think it's great that you've created the smaller pieces, which has allowed a younger generation to get involved with original art and to start collecting. Do you think that's an important part of the process, is to make things affordable and approachable in the art world?
Yeah, most definitely. That's why I did it. I wanted to, especially, you know, a couple of fairs that I've been a part of. And I actually, yes, the young people who were admiring my things, and obviously it was out of their price range. However, I always produced smaller ones. And I said, but you can have this. And they were very happy. They welcome with more money for the large ones. And it's just this interaction as well. So yes, the small ones. However, the small ones are very difficult.
Yes, it's often the way, isn't it? They take longer than the bigger ones.
Yeah.
Well, I think I mean, certainly for me, it's been a pleasure to be selling your smaller pieces to people in their 20s. It really was. I mean, back in March, pre-lockdown, you know, the smaller pieces went to people in their 20s who it was their first work of art, and quite a few of them stood on my stand for a very long time, just going, and then they kept coming back to it and coming back to it, and I was watching them. I like to leave people to have their own time and space, and I was watching them as I remember feeling about something like Rothko, because they may well not have been to galleries and museums, but I think they became inspired to. So when you were talking to people, it inspired them to then look further into art and to experience art and to understand the value of it, really. But Millena, thank you very much for talking with me today. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And we look forward to whatever you're going to come out with next. I know we're going to be impressed. Take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. My pleasure. Bye.